Build your better breakfast at Subway with the tasty 250 combo, a 16-ounce cup of freshly brewed Seattle's best coffee, and any delicious egg muffin melt. And don't hit the snooze on this deal. Right now, come in before 11 a.m. for a $5 foot-long breakfast sub. Subway, eat fresh. The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report, Part 2, taping this on a Thursday. Part 1 was with Buster only. Part 2, my friend from NFL.com, Steelers fan, not on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. He's here in studio, Dave Dameshek. What's happening?
Hello, Sporty. How are we? Looking well.
Thanks for your left tackle getting injured. I now feel good about this game.
Well, you should. I mean, they're down to Flozell. That's going to be the protector of Roethlisberger's backside.
I was delighted to see that.
Yeah,
Flozell Adams. I wasn't even sure he was still in the league, and now he's your left tackle.
Well, like I've been telling people, for everybody who's up on Mount Pius who thought that Roethlisberger should have been punished more harshly, he's about to suffer some street justice.
Yeah, karma's coming back around for him.
At the hands of the league's pass rushers.
We were talking a little bit. I saw you last night. We were talking about the NFL has just become a league where you just need to get lucky with health and stuff. And the Steelers have the best team, and they are unlucky.
I don't know if I agree with that, but all right, that's fine. I think 5 years ago, as recently as 5 years ago, you would look at the teams that made it to the Super Bowl, and the teams that would win were the ones that just had the good fortune of health. They had better health than the other contenders. Now it really is just about attrition. Everybody suffers massive injuries. There's just no way. I mean, I don't know if you've heard about this, but concussions have been on the tips of Commissioner Goodell and his pals chums all season long. And it really just does seem like everybody's going down with bad injuries, and you really can't. All the coaches now have that rhetoric down. They have that handled pretty well now. Like,
take it 1 week at a time.
Just got to step in and fill in. Hey, we can't miss a beat.
That's why we have a 53-man roster.
But man, oh man, this is grim. I mean, although I will say, and we've had this conversation before, and here we go. I'm sure. Let me say up front, I'm sure I'll be called a homer by the listener over and over again. If there's anybody in the league that can handle it, it's Roethlisberger. The pressure. I think that he's Mike Vick maybe. I don't know that I completely buy him over the course of the season yet. But if there's anybody who can still be productive when as soon as the ball is snapped, the pass rushers are in his face, it would be Roethlisberger.
It's him and Josh Freeman in terms of guys who they're going to get sacked and the guy bounces off and then they roll out and they get a 22-yard play and the fans of the other team are going, what the hell just happened? That blitz was perfect. How did he not go down?
It really is true. Doesn't
it? Only two guys.
Nothing breaks your will like that as a defense. Doesn't make you. Well, Brady is the other one. No matter what you do, you get him in 3rd and 9. Brady's the guy who always converts it, and it just kills you.
Manning, I think, is on that list too because he has that way of the pressure's coming up the middle and he takes that one clumsy sidestep, and then all of a sudden zip.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, man, we didn't get him on that? How did we not get him?
Well, I got all sorts of heat. I'm writing a column now on NFL.com, and I got all sorts of heat last week from people because I said if I had to have a quarterback to win one game, it would be Roethlisberger. And people, of course, the charges of me being a homer.
Well, that's a ridiculous statement. I mean,
for one game, listen. Maybe it is ridiculous. Let me just say,
he played well in the Arizona Super Bowl, but the other one he was terrible.
All right, fine, but as I
22
say,
QB rating.
Listen, I agree with that, but also if you saw those playoff games that preceded that one, he is the reason they got to the Super Bowl.
No,
he was dynamite. He was really great, but the idea. But first of all, like I said. The idea that he can handle, that he can be productive behind a subpar offensive line, that certainly can't be said for Peyton Manning or your pal Brady. True?
No. But no, Brady doesn't move around like he used to. He hasn't been the same since the Pollard thing. I don't know whether he has a giant knee brace or whatever, but the one play he made in the Viking game when he eluded the thing and did the spin move, That was one of the only times this year that he's done something like that. He hasn't been
rarely
creating
required.
plays out of nothing.
But but regarding Manning specifically, I said he's no higher for me in a big game than fourth on the list. You know, at best I could see Drew Brees being ahead of him, Brady, of course, Roethlisberger, and I know Aaron Rodgers hasn't won a big game yet, but I predict by season's end everybody's going to be talking about him as maybe the best quarterback in the league. I mean, now
Roethlisberger?
No, Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, dynamite. I think he just hasn't won the big.
Not sold on him in the
game.
close ones.
Well, yeah. There is no record to indicate that he is successful.
I think he's like, what is it, 1-8 in games decided by
terrible.
3 and less.
Yeah, but you got to cut him a little slack. He's only been a starter now for this is his third season as a starter.
Do you agree with my reader's premise that he should start dating Jen Sturger?
I love
at least
it.
ask her out.
Oh yes,
that'd be the greatest ever.
That
right?
would be marvelous. Yeah,
I got to say the one thing about talking quarterbacks, Manning is the only guy that actually switches my pick, like or changes. Like I'm in this Vegas contest. Right. Philly to me -3 was just, that's a lock. I think they're better than Indy. Indy's so banged up. And yet I didn't put it in the contest because of Manning, because it's like, it just makes me uncomfortable to go against him, and somehow they covered by a point. But it was just a vindication, like 26-17, 3 minutes left, and you're like, this guy's going to go down the field and score, and they're going to cover.
Yeah, and I read that you said that, and I agree with it. But again, I'm talking big game.
No, I know.
And somehow Peyton Manning, I'm not sure what it is, what voodoo he's worked on the experts, that he somehow gets a pass when Brett Favre deservedly gets abused for throwing his team seasons away over and over again in the postseason. But I mean, I don't have to tell you. 0-3 and 0-4. He was atrocious against your Patriots.
Couple Chargers upsets,
those
too.
Two back-to-back
blood on his hands.
Yes, those were terrible. He lost a playoff game 41-0 to the Jets. The Steelers, when in Roethlisberger's first Super Bowl run, the first time they did that, he was lousy in that game. Even the year they won the Super Bowl, he wasn't very good. His numbers weren't very good.
Well, the Pats had a 3rd and 3 to end the game.
Right. And by the way, the one Super Bowl he has that keeps him from being called, Dan Marino or poor man's Dan Marino or this era's Dan Fouts is a forgettable win in the rain against Rex Grossman. Congratulations, Peyton Manning. Somehow he's the 8th best player. The NFL has named him the 8th greatest player of all time. That
top 100 countdown is reason number 1 why you never have a panel do rankings.
Oh, I mean, it's just. But listen, the viewers are culpable too. They had Peyton Manning, I think, 5th or something like that.
Well, they're always going to skew toward the modern guy, which is why you have to give them like a half vote or something. The one thing I was happy with was that Montana got the respect he deserved.
Yes, he deserved. Well, what
he is now underrated.
What's funny about it is, I thought, was that 4 or 5 years ago, the conversation now included Tom Brady. It was Johnny Unitas, Joe Montana, and Tom Brady. Who's the best quarterback of the 3? And by the way, I hate when people our age start talking about, are you kidding me? Jim Brown was the best of all time. Really? Did you ever see Jim Brown play? It's really hard for us to weigh in on that. And and as far as that goes, the idea that Don Hudson is the greatest wide receiver of all time, who on the face of the earth currently ever saw him play? How would we know? And by the way, if the experts who have told us that the 1958 NFL championship game is what made the NFL relevant, then by definition, aren't all the games that preceded it sort of neither here nor there? Aren't those results moot, and now we have to judge from 58 forward? That's the start of the modern era.
That was my biggest issue with my book, was trying to rank these guys and trying to rank somebody like Oscar, who I didn't see play and only had videotape of, versus Kobe Bryant. How do you do it?
It's like Bobby Orr. I mean, Bobby Orr, you watch those highlights. If you see extended chunks of his highlights, he looks spectacular and singularly great. No one's ever played hockey the way he did.
He's the greatest hockey player of all time.
Well, but you can't say it. You didn't see him play. You can't have.
I did see him play.
Oh, please.
I remember 74, 75, 76. Bobby was the greatest hockey player of all time.
Just because you got gray hair, I thought you were prematurely gray. I didn't realize you were actually 62 years of age.
He was the greatest hockey player of all time.
All right, I don't want that conversation.
Who's the number 2 defenseman?
Well, listen, I mean, yeah,
he is so far ahead of number 2 at his spot that's why he's the greatest player of all time.
All right.
Because
Listen, I'm not here to talk
I'm
puck
just
with
saying. Gretzky, Lemieux, I mean, we could argue that until the death, but Bobby Orr was the greatest defenseman of all time, and it's like by default. It's not even that nobody says, like, but Chris Chelios. No. That's why he's the greatest.
True. It's an interesting point. It's sort of the one people are making now about Antonio Gates and how he is separated from the second best tight end.
I mean, he's been piling it up.
Yeah.
You know, MSG showed this movie called The Rocket about Rocket Richard.
Yeah.
Goalies without hockey mask. Jacoby and I were arguing about this. Goalies without masks versus suitcases that didn't have wheels. For the weirdest reality of the 50s, 60s, 70s, what was stranger? I go goalies without masks.
Yeah, so bizarre. And
goalies without masks.
And then they were ridiculed by their contemporaries.
Yeah, like wusses.
Yeah. You're going to put a mask on? Why? Because there's a frozen piece of rubber flying at your face at 90 miles an hour?
50s hockey is the all-time just confusing. Like, you know, they were showing, they had game scenes in that thing where Rocket got mad and he would just smash his stick over somebody's head from behind. It's like, you're suspended for 2 games. You know,
Well, yeah, you know what else is great? If you ever see I think it's early 50s, is, you know, again, why the 58 championship made football relevant, and it obscured the crazy, violent past. If you see the highlights of the early 50s, have you ever seen that black and white stuff where the rule used to be in the NFL that the player wasn't down? So if you made a shoestring tackle, for instance, and the guy stumbled and fell down, he wasn't down yet. You had to fall on him and keep him down. Those highlights are hysterical.
How about the goalpost being right on the goal line? And the guys, they'd run the wide receivers would run across it and try to run the defensive back into the goalpost. Yeah, like a Bugs Bunny episode.
I've been talking a lot lately about what was the bizarre phenomenon of the barefoot kicker. Until 1979, no one ever said, let's take our shoes and socks off to kick it. Tony Franklin makes the scene. All of a sudden, this becomes a fad for 1 decade. 1 decade, guys are out there shoeless,
covering kickoffs.
Ridiculous. It gives me a better feel for the ball.
What?
I don't know if that's true or not. But either way, isn't that offset by the fact that Rich Karlis and Tony Franklin and guys like that were kicking in -2 come December? Wasn't that a mitigating thing for I like the feel of the ball? Yeah, but your toes are frostbitten.
The straightforward thing, too, is also a weird one.
I'd like
Once they started with the soccer, it was like, this is better. And the guy's like, no, I'm sticking with what brought me.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Go straight ahead.
Mark Mosley, weird to think he made it deep into the 80s that way. Maybe there should one day be a comeback of both. Barefoot head-on kicker. Now, that'd be fun to watch.
I can't remember if we've talked about this, but am I the only one who thinks Dempsey's 63 is pseudo?
I talk about this all the time.
I mean, let's face it. God bless the guy. He was playing with a birth defect, a lot of courage, all that stuff. But he had a shoe that was like, it was half metal.
It was a 2-iron. He had a 2-iron in his shoe. His foot, yes, a handicap in 99.9% of human conditions, but in this one thing, he had a 2-iron for a foot. His foot was aerodynamically designed to kick field goals, and he's hailed as some sort of a champion for the It
was basically a bionic foot.
Yes, that's right. Yes, he does not deserve the praise he gets for this deed.
It should just be mentioned every time somebody brings it up.
I completely agree. Asterisk. If we're going to asterisk guys because they were juiced, how about the guy with the plate in his shoe? That's ridiculous.
It was like a foot long. It was probably like 6 inches of just metal.
Yeah. Insane. I completely agree with you.
And it went so much further than any other field goal I think anybody had kicked. I think the previous record was like 38.
Is that
No, I don't know. But he shattered the previous record.
Yeah, listen, I agree with you.
Plus, it was when the goalpost was on the goal line, so he kicked it from like his own 30. It's incredible to watch. It's one of the 5 most incredible football clips ever.
It is awesome, and then when you watch the replay of it, you get the sense that the play-by-play guy thinks he might make it. So,
yeah.
What's
you know why he thought he might make it? Because he had 6 inches of metal in his right foot. That's why I thought I had a chance.
He had a 2-iron in the shoe. And then those barefoot guys. Get one of them on here. Get Lansford or get your boy Tony Franklin on. There's so many things to talk about.
He played for the Pats.
I
so
know.
it was like when we had a cold weather game, my dad and I would be like, oh, this is bad for Tony Franklin. It's 12 degrees outside. He's got an exposed foot. They'd have to wrap it when he wasn't playing.
Now that you want to talk about working with a handicap. Now that was it. He had one bare foot. He was morbidly obese, and he's out there making field goals in the NFL.
We had a kicker who was from England named John Smith, who was one of the
he was one of
the early
famous,
soccer guys.
One of the early cheating events of the Patriots' history.
Oh, the snowplow?
Yeah, he was the guy.
You
who
got
made
a problem
the
with the snowplow?
I thought it was funny. I had no vested interest in it.
It's the highlight of the 80s for us, other than making the Super Bowl.
I'm good with it.
We won the snowplow game.
I'm amused by it. He beat Don Shula and the pretty boys from Florida. Yeah, that was fine.
We had this guy, John Smith, who would miss 28-yarders like it was his job. And there's really nothing worse than having a bad field goal kicker. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could argue maybe a bad goalie.
Guys who let in soft goals.
I guess a bad closer.
Yeah. It's just, again, that's one of those things that just kills
because it's such a fake position. It's like...
I think we have talked about this before.
Yeah, I think we have too.
But they really should change the rules. I really do think this, and people laugh, and I'm only half kidding. Wouldn't it be great because it's too easy to make 50-yard field goals now for these guys. And it has nothing to do with the essence of the sport that you bring in a European guy who's 5'3" to make your field goals and from 53 yards, and he's deciding games. Wouldn't it be better if we would go back to the olden days when you had Paul Hornung and Pat Summerall making 30% of their kick attempts each season? Don't you think it would be great if
you're getting rid of specialists?
That's right. Ndamukong Suh and Wes Welker last week, they went out there, they gave a shot. I think there should be some sort of a rule, like you have to play at least 3 plays from the line of scrimmage in order to kick. All right, fine, let's do it. Listen, you got juice. You change all the rules. You change the NHL All-Star game.
Although I can't find the column where I wrote it, but I know I did.
Listen, I've told you many times, just listen. That's fine. You can be the king of sports.
Is this the Santa Monica one?
That's a great idea.
Do your Santa Monica spiel.
Well, they should play. I love the January 1st, the Classic, the Winter Classic, and they play it when it's snowy and charming and everything else. And that is great, of course. But if you really want to if Kamish Bettman really wants to show off how popular his sport is nationwide, north and south, on the Santa Monica Pier, yes, you would not have 80 or 100,000 people watching the game. Instead, you would have the sea as the backdrop, the sun coming down. It'd be glorious.
I would do it where the Malibu Little League field is.
Oh, that would be good.
Right in front of the Pepperdine campus.
Every time I drive by that, I stop and I point to whoever's in the car with me and say, "Can you imagine? Playing Little League?"
I pitched a show to ESPN. Because it's really incredible. If you've never been there, the Pepperdine campus is in Malibu, which is the most beautiful place on the earth, and it's on this giant, cliff you'd call it. So it overlooks the Pacific Ocean. It's really out of the end of the Shawshank Redemption. Mm-hmm. And on the bottom of the hill, across the street of the Pacific Coast Highway, really on the cliff is this Little League field, and it's the Malibu Little League field. And I was like, this just should be a show. There should be a reality series, Malibu Little League. It's like you've never seen a field like this. This is the greatest baseball field on the planet. It's 1,000 times
spoiled little celebrity kids playing ball. Yeah, listen, that would have cachet. Yeah.
Frosted tips at age 11. Billy's got a big surf meet, and he's also got a big game, and he's got to choose. Coming up on Malibu Little League.
Oh, yeah.
I would watch that.
Gary Busey, he's got a little kid now. Maybe that kid starts playing. Busey starts showing up.
That's celebrity kids
right there. Yeah.
Celebrity kids. You got trophy wives. You got former child actresses now with the kid playing left field.
You can oversee sports and come up with all your clever ideas, but just give me uniforms. I need to be the uniform czar of sports.
When I'm the czar, I'm going to make you my uniform.
Is that right? Thank you. I appreciate that because
it'll be like when Rahm Emanuel took over, and within 2 years it goes horribly wrong, and you end up becoming like the mayor of the mayor of King of Prussia, Pennsylvania.
But so what? Those 2 years, I'm going to clean it up.
Yeah.
And by the way, your Patriots are near the top of my list. Forget Flying Elvis. Pat Patriot shall be on the side of their hats. From
bad luck with those, though.
It's true. That's the jinx of jinxes. Then now they can't change their uniforms,
The one thing that we've always talked about with having the Clippers change their name and going from LA to Hollywood,
right,
and getting new uniforms. Like when you look at what happened with the Bucks that year, when they got rid of the orange, and they just immediately won the Super Bowl, or they're immediately competitive with the Dungy era. I don't know why more teams don't do that.
I think
there's no easier way to exercise all the baggage and demons you have, because really it's just laundry. It's not like, you have the same quarterback you had 28 years ago. It's just the uniform. Like when we wear the Pat Patriot uniform, I get like weird Vietnam like flashbacks. I really do. We didn't have a lot of good moments in those uniforms.
Irving Fryer.
There's a lot of losing in those uniforms. And I feel like with the Clippers, this team that was so promising 2 weeks ago, and now it's headed for another 20-win season. Blake Griffin's already like going through the motions.
So would they be better than 1 and whatever right now if they had become?
They were the Hollywood Knights.
The Hollywood Knights or the Hollywood Blockbusters. That's what the NFL team.
The Hollywood Blockbusters.
When LA gets the Jags inevitably, or maybe the Chargers, or however it shakes out, Hollywood Blockbusters. That's the name.
That's going to happen.
I agree. Of course, it's going to happen.
The people that are behind this now.
Magic's going to make it so.
I'm going to have Casey Wasserman on the podcast again, because a couple of years ago he came on and explained why it wouldn't probably happen. But now that Tim Lewicki's involved, those guys make stuff happen. And they have the right kind of money. They have the right idea, which is that we'll go into this trying to get a Super Bowl and maybe trying to get it every 4 or 5 years, and then eventually the team will come. Smart.
The only beef I have with it is that they're putting the stadium in City of Industry. And as far as what
Are you sure? I thought it was in downtown LA. It's City of Industry?
I mean, it's in that area where some of those freeways that
the freeway
somewhere
vortex
over there,
of hell.
It's inland and all that. Yeah. If you're going to do it right.
I thought it was going to be downtown, like near the Staples.
If that happened, that would be kind of cool. But like you say with the Little League kids in Malibu, wouldn't it be nice for the sea to be the backdrop of the stadium? And by the way, fix up the Coliseum. That's a grand place. The Rose Bowl is nice. There are nice options to build some new place. Either way, won't it be grand to go to those games? People say
not just the games, but what about concerts? Like bands have to come here and play at the freaking Rose Bowl, which is or Dodger Stadium. It's terrible.
When people say that, that's one of the falsest statements that people make. Is no one's from LA, so no one would support an NFL team here. Listen, I root for another team, you root for another team, but I definitely would be on the list for season tickets. 8 Sundays a year, go out and see NFL games would be great.
So many people have money. If they can support 2 NBA teams,
of course,
I'm pretty sure they can handle 1 NFL team.
Yeah, and listen, if there's a team like the Jags that cannot sell out their games, then enough already. Come here, and we don't want the Raiders either.
Plus, the key to LA is that rich people get in a position where really all they want to do is impress their kids. And you have all these different people who run like multimedia companies or, the big agents or whatever, and they'll have this 8-year-old like, "Hey, Dad, are we going to get Los Angeles Jaguars season tickets?" "Oh, I got to get a suite." I mean, they'll sell the suites out in the club seats immediately.
Well, we're not having
all that matters.
Jaguars. That's not going to be the team name. And those turquoise uniforms are gone too. Black and orange, I say, the best color combo in all the land.
What's wrong with bringing the LA Express back?
That's just not a bad idea. The LA Express. You know me. I'll talk USFL with you till the cows come home. I love USFL.
Well, the USFL lives on because anytime somebody needs football scenes for a movie or TV show, the USFL footage is with.
So true. Yeah, people miss that. Yeah, I have a bizarre amount of knowledge when it comes to USFL football, but you brought it back with the latest documentary, the 30 for 30.
Yeah.
Marcus Dupree, man, he's yet another example of people have turned the USFL into a punchline. But in fact, the quality of football was good, and there were so many guys that were legitimate. I mean, Jim Kelly would be regarded differently if he hadn't have gone to the USFL. He'd be way higher up. He'd be right near the top of the all-time passing leaders.
Great name, great uniforms, too. Houston Gamblers.
The Houston Gamblers.
Really good.
What's interesting about a cool name thing is that you had the Boston Breakers, which begat the New Orleans Breakers, and which then led to the Portland Breakers. And what was interesting about that was, unlike the Utah Jazz, which makes no sense, or the Los Angeles Lakers because there are no lakes in LA.
Each time it worked?
It works each time. Yeah. Boston near the sea, New Orleans right by the sea, by the Gulf, and then Portland up by the sea. Perfect.
So let's go back to Steelers Pats because we got to wrap this up. you expect to win this weekend?
No, I don't. Listen,
why is the line 4.5? It's too high.
I don't get it.
It's a 3-point game.
Yeah.
I mean, you could talk me into Steelers 3.5, but the 4.5 is insane. I'm not saying the Pats are going to win or lose. I'm just saying I think either team can win this game.
Yeah, listen, I'm at this point, I've been so abused by your Patriots coming into Heinz Field. What confidence could I possibly have? Add to that, even though it's fun to laugh about them getting destroyed by the Browns last week, you now know that this means that the Patriots are almost, in the last decade, they almost never lose back-to-back games. So you know they're going to roll in.
And a little bit deceiving because Gronkowski fumbled on the one. It would have been 3 points going into halftime, and we were getting the ball to start the second half.
All right. Well,
the Browns won. They kicked their butt and all that, but it wasn't the bloodbath that people are now making it seem like. I
guess so, but also don't forget Aaron Hernandez's first touchdown was fluky too. That was a deflected ball. Who knows?
True.
So,
but Brady wanted it to be deflected.
Oh, he did. Man, He's a master. He should be much higher. But that was the point also. But Peyton Manning, 8th on the list. Brady, 21st, 4 or 5 years ago. Who would have ever thought that would be true, that you would say Peyton Manning is decidedly superior to Peyton Manning, and that was the general opinion. But, yeah, I think we're going into Sunday night. I just don't feel good about it because the defense for the Steelers has been really good, and I was saying all spring and summer long, beware. I don't know what's going to happen with this Roethlisberger mess and the talk from the Rooney family that they wanted the team to get back to the ground game and get that identity back, which I support, obviously, and so on. I said, I don't know how all that's going to work out, no Santonio, but one thing's for sure, the Steel Curtain is going to rise up and be number one in the league again. Now it's their chance to do it. I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks. Someone's getting exposed on Sunday night as a team that really isn't a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, we're right around the time you go one way or the other. And I think this game will tell us, unless both teams play great and it's one of those 27-24, either team could have won games.
I have no confidence. Over the last month, Colt McCoy in his NFL debut, a rookie, didn't exactly, he didn't throw for 350 or anything, but they didn't embarrass him. He looked just fine against them. Chad Henne, who now is backing up Chad Pennington, wasn't half bad. He threw his only touchdown pass of the last month against the Steelers and didn't get picked off, I don't think. And then Carson Palmer was just fine with T.O.
That game was over, though. I mean, it was 27-7.
Fine, but the point is that people are productive against the Steelers, and it's not like Brady needs your pal Ben Jarvis to go off. I mean, nobody runs on that Steelers defense still.
Well, then you could flip it on the Pats, which I've done devil's advocate. 6-2, Bills score 30 on them. The Miami game, they were down at halftime to get the kick return to start the second half, followed by the block punt. All of a sudden, that game's 20-7. That game, a little bit lucky in that game. The Ravens game, I feel like the Ravens, all they had to do was just take one chance when they had the lead. They didn't. They just were so missionary position with how they handled that fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And the Pats lucked out with that. Minnesota dominated the first 35 minutes. Pats hung around. I'm not sure if this Pats team is good or not. I mean, I know they're good, but I'm saying I'm not sure if this is...
They're Super Bowl worthy.
They need to go into Pittsburgh and win this game, I think.
Well, I sort of agree with you, and I think that team is so flawed, especially the defenses. As usual, they can't really run the ball consistently. But yeah, the defense is soft. Don't you feel like that they can be had both ways? I mean, a running team should be able to pound them. That's why I was surprised. I agree with you. The Ravens, all they had to do, forget about taking a shot. All they had to do was grind them in the second half. Just keep running Ray Lewis over and over again, and I think they would have won the game.
And I'm not sold on the Ravens either. And I think we're taping this on a Thursday. I picked Atlanta to beat them tonight.
I agree with you on that, and I also think that it's the Super Bowl preview. I think it is going to be Falcons and Ravens. But how about the AFC? That's the other thing going up against it. What was it 2 years ago where the Patriots had they have 10 wins and didn't make the playoffs? And
it's going to be 11.
Time ever?
It has to be 11 this year to get in.
Think about that. Yeah. You have the Colts, Titans, Texans, I don't love the Texans, but all right, those three teams, Steelers, Ravens, Patriots, Jets, Dolphins I think actually are going to be better with Chad Pennington, and then whoever comes out of the AFC
which will be
West.
At least 10 wins in the AFC West this year.
Yeah, right. But of the teams I just named to you, three of them aren't going to make the playoffs. I don't think the Colts are going. I think the Titans are going to win that division. I don't think that the Colts end up in the playoffs.
It's going to be one of the Pats, Jets. It's out of these four: Pats, Jets, Colts, Titans. I think only three go. I think Baltimore and Pittsburgh go.
I guess so, yeah. But I mean, this is a big game. Like we say, I think for both teams, we're suddenly going to see, wow, the Steelers really are terribly flawed. Brady picked them apart, or wow, the Steelers just dominated that sorry defense. Richard Mendenhall was making hay on them all day. All night.
You could also see the Jets could go 12-4, Pats go 11-5, Colts go 11-5, Tennessee goes 12-4. Then the Pats Colts, who gets that wild card spot, comes down to who wins when they play in 2 weeks, because the first thing's head-to-head, I think. A lot of variables.
The AFC is really the Western Conference of the NBA over the last 5 years. It's loaded this year. But now all of a sudden, I've been bad-mouthing the NFC, but now all of a sudden these teams, it looks like there are 3 or 4 legitimately really good teams. I buy the Giants. I think the Packers are going to be great in the second half.
Packers should be there in January.
Yeah.
They're rounding into the shape that...
That's right.
I picked Pittsburgh, Atlanta before the year. That actually has a chance.
You picked... Oh, I didn't know you picked...
I was in on Atlanta.
That was a jinx job on your part. You were trying to reverse jinx the Steelers.
What I like about Pittsburgh is that they fit all the components offensively that you'd want. They can run the ball. They have the short yardage guys. And then I was on to Wallace last year. I liked him.
I liked him. I didn't know that he'd be good as a feature receiver.
Got to do it. You got to have that one guy that goes deep. And I didn't think they were going to miss Holmes as much as everybody thought.
Yeah, I have been surprised that they didn't commit to running the ball and being a run team even once Roethlisberger got back. But well,
I got to say, I'm surprised by Mendenhall, who I don't think gets enough credit for this. He will bust out the 30-yard runs. You know, if he hits that first guy and gets by him. He puts on the Jets. I think he's faster than he gets credit for. I think he's really good. He's in the top 6, I think.
Yeah, what they are doing well is the overused phrase of running between the tackles when guys don't run between the tackles. But in fact, Mendenhall has become that because. Out of necessity, he's become that. You know, now Flozell, who is as lousy as he is a pass blocker, he is good as a run blocker. So they've been running to the right with Pouncey, the rookie. They've been productive that way. Now that's I don't know how they're going to be able to consistently run the ball. With
you like
Flozell now
Pouncey? Hey, Pouncey's one of those picks. I think I wrote this in April. Everybody's like, yeah, he's the best center. He's going to be great. Well, so where's he going to go in the draft? Oh, probably like 18 to 22. It's like the center's an important position. Why wouldn't that guy go higher?
I know, but this is one of those things.
This is what they love to do with the draft. You can always find a center.
Here's another thing I feel like you and I have spoken about many times before, but the idea of offensive line analysis. I love how dopes like us sit around and talk about Anthony Munoz. I mean, how could anyone evaluate? How could any schmo, including me, sit around and talk about, well, Anthony Munoz is clearly the greatest left tackle.
You only know when they're bad.
Yeah. Right.
You can say, like, I know. Who's that guy you had a couple years ago? The tackle.
Oh, the Steelers left tackle.
Or was it right tackle? It was somebody that was like a turnstile.
Well, it was Max Starks, actually, who just got hurt.
Now he was good, but for a while he wasn't.
Yeah.
But it's like, when the guy's bad because you see Dwight Freeney repeatedly running around him and sacking your quarterback.
It is one of those things.
Who's that guy?
But it is surprising, though, really, that there is that there's that much range and quality of offensive linemen. Really, there's another 300-pound guy across from you, about 6 inches across from you. The ball is snapped. You rise up and you put your hands on him, and you basically lean on him. How much better or worse can you be at that skill than anyone else in the league? Isn't it basically just go in the weight room and get as strong as you can and weigh about 300 pounds and then just lean up on the guy
and rub this cream on you every once in a while. Don't ask what it is.
Don't be a cynic.
Rub it on your biceps.
Oh, sports guy.
Well, we agreed way too much on this, so let's bring up Roethlisberger because it's a polarizing topic. So now it's November. I guess we're in mid-November now. How have the Steeler fans justified rooting for somebody who even admits himself that he's made some morally bankrupt decisions?
All right. First of all,
I'm just asking.
But you do it in an accusatory way.
He went to the moral ATM.
Have
and he
I
put in
ever?
his card?
Have I changed at all with this thing? The reason I resent Roethlisberger, first of all, is I said they should trade him away, and a lot of people say, "Oh, shame the devil, Dameshek." Now look who's up on Mount Pius against the quarterback of the Steelers. You're coming. Here's what he took away from me: my right to make fun of Ravens fans, Bengals fans, Cowboys fans,
Patriots
and so
fans.
on.
Yeah.
Patriots fans for their
robbed
various
you.
forms of scumbaggery. Now, how can I be supportive of a team whose quarterback is a guy who's done some
misdeeds?
Misdeeds, but that's what they are, by the way. Let's keep in mind he's never been charged with anything, and I'm not defending because
Sounds
clearly
like
he's all right. Well, he's done some creepy things. We can admit. And it was no secret for years. Anyone who was ever around the Steelers, it was no secret that he was not the.
Have you seen the footage?
Of what?
He went to the moral ATM. He put his card in, and it rejected it. Said he was bankrupt.
Listen, I always condemn the guys who come out with these scripted, prepared statements and read them. For whose benefit are these
And then the
things?
interview with somebody that you know is going to ask you any really seriously tough questions.
Yes, it's
Hey, we have
ridiculous.
Merrill Hodge, so we can come in. Oh, the former Steeler? I'd love to talk to him.
All right, now
Should I act sad?
This
Okay.
is a grand rationalization, I realize. But I sincerely mean it when I say, for the greater good, for the city of Pittsburgh, for places like Boston and Chicago and Cleveland and places where the winter is long and cold and nasty, it means all the difference in getting through the winter when your team is good. Whether or not it's deluding yourself, if you're a grown-up who's investing, who somehow identifies with your
You're talking
team
about
too
cold
much.
weather cities.
These people, the fans in Pittsburgh, like they are all over that part of the country, the majority of the country, really, these people, their identity, their morale is boosted when their team is good. So listen, the quarterback is a scumbag. So be it. It's not the greatest situation in the world. We've lost the moral high ground.
Scumbag's kind of a strong word.
Well, look, I mean, listen, he's not a criminal. And by the way, the inconsistency of the suspension is ridiculous, that he has never been charged with a crime. Other guys commit crimes and are given a pass. Interesting, to say the least. But all right.
Well, it was during the stage, which I now think is over, where Roger Goodell was just had this weird omnipotence. And all the writers and the broadcasters were fine with it. And now he's starting to look like a real hypocrite.
I agree with this. And listen,
Don't predict too much. You write stuff for NFL.com. No, they'll just have you killed. Your car will blow up.
No, the commission. Listen, we bounce
the commission
off
your way back? Okay.
Yeah, the commission drops me a line. He's the greatest guy. Okay. I'm doing that. I'm doing a fantasy show streaming online.
Do you wear a leather jacket with the an NFL logo on when you guys kibitz?
Kibitz? What goyim you are. You're such a goy.
Kibitz?
Kibitz. No, listen, he drops me a line after the show every week. But yeah, no, listen. The leather jacket.
I don't think I've ever gotten
cool.
I don't think I've ever gotten a Jewish phrase correct.
You're one of those guys.
I even screw up Mazel Tov, but I like it. I like trying to weave the phrases in, but I always mess them up.
I hate when guys, on the same level that I hate when players in the NFL don't know the rules. Oh, Nick Folk makes the field goal in overtime. I didn't know that was the rule, that the game ended on that. Don McNabb did the same thing. That's outrageous. By osmosis, you should know that. I mean, you've been around long enough that you would have picked up on that at some point. Same thing with you. How is it possible? I hate when guys say to me, "Oh, yeah, Christmas is coming over, but for you, for the Jewish people, Chanukah is coming." What do you call it? Like, you don't know? You really get your?
Well, that one I would.
You have no idea. Oh, that happened quite a bit to me. That also.
Chanukah?
Yeah, I mean, I was when I was growing up in third and fourth grade, you remember you'd have music class and you would go around the piano like once a week, and that you'd play seasonally appropriate songs, and we would, so as the holidays would approach, Christmas song after Christmas song, and I was the only Jew in the classroom, and the teacher, she'd say, "Now let's sing a song for David." I'd be like, and all the kids would go like, and look at me and give me the stink eye. Like, it's not my fault. I don't want to sing Hanukkah, Hanukkah, come light the menorah. Remember that one?
I told you I went to elementary school in a Jewish neighborhood, and we got like every holiday off, and I was so early. I had everything. Then the bar mitzvahs, I was like, really? You guys, a huge party for turning 13? This is great. Great religion this is. I love this.
But listen, so I've I'm rooting for the team as a part of the team. Roethlisberger is the quarterback. I root for the team's success. That's how I justify / rationalize it, and that's it.
I asked you about the city. So let's say he's like a president. His public approval rating a year ago, or not a year ago, 9 months ago.
I was very surprised that he wasn't booed. I thought it would be 50-50, the boos.
So people are in. Are people wearing the jerseys?
I haven't seen a lot of that.
Why don't you go back for a game?
I want to because ironically, because now I'm doing, the NFL show on Sunday mornings, I'd love nothing better than to jump a plane with you, the sports guy, and take you out there and sit in our seats in Heinz Field.
I like when you go to Steelers home games because they always lose. You change the karma of the game.
It really is.
I wish you were going to this one.
I have
Can I send you back? What if I send you first class? Will you go?
I really am a hypocrite to badmouth Peyton Manning in big games because when Dameshek is sitting in the stands in Heinz Field in the postseason, my record is quite poor. But I did pull that one out in the AFC title game against the Ravens 2 years ago. But outside,
the hardest hitting game ever.
That really was, yeah. I talked to Merrill Hodge about that right after, and I said, was that the hardest hitting game you've ever seen? And he said, oh, no. Those Oilers-Steelers games back in the 80s.
Oh, the Mike Renfro era.
Yeah, really? Bubby Brister and company, you guys were hitting as hard as that game. There were 3 Ravens literally knocked unconscious on the field. That was the
By the way, during the pre-concussion, holier than thou era.
Yeah.
So everybody after was like, ooh, brutal game. Wow. But, I mean, if that game happened now, I think SportsCenter would just stop.
Oh, by the way,
SportsCenter would stop.
They continue to celebrate. If you don't notice, when there's a big hit, every broadcast team celebrates. Oh, that's what football is all about. The same old cliches are still coming out, and no one's. And I've seen nothing that would indicate outside of that first week. A couple of plays you can really break down. The guy let up maybe a little bit. These guys are back to playing because. Why? Because there's no way you can modify your behavior that way. Because they say, we're going to legislate against this. We're going to fine you if you take cheap shots. As I said before, I don't think anybody, this generation of players, I think you can make a case, is less dirty. They take fewer cheap shots than their predecessors. Is there anyone in the league that consistently plays like Jack Tatum did, or I guess you could throw Donnie Shelton?
Tatum and Atkinson, their goal was to take somebody's head off if you came over the middle.
That's right.
I think they put stuff over their elbows and stuff.
I think so. Yeah, I don't know if that's lore or not, but maybe. Either way,
plaster forearms.
All right, James Harrison has had a couple of unfortunate moments, but I mean, no one consistently is out headhunting. They're really bad. I hate to say it, but it really is. Bigger, faster, stronger, and that's all there is to it. I mean, it's the reason these guys get hurt is because they're moving faster and they're bigger. If I run 10 miles an hour into a Subaru as I'm leaving your Tony neighborhood, my car might get a little scratch on it. If I'm going 40 miles an hour and I run into a Ford Bronco out there, my car's going to be destroyed. That's all there is to it. That's why they get hurt worse, because they're much bigger and at the same time much faster. It's so ludicrous, the idea that a guy, as he's running full speed at somebody who's in the air and coming down, can pick the spot exactly where he's going to put his shoulder pads into the guy. It's laughable.
And that's what drove me crazy about the Austin Collie call last week.
Yeah, and what are you going to do about that?
Austin Collie, at the last second, which in slow-mo it looks worse than it is, but in real time, he's catching it, and he ducks his head down as the guy has already left where he's going and has targeted a spot at his chest. And they hit heads, and the guy, unnecessary roughness. He had the ball.
Well, and the Nick Collins ones, too. Nick Collins one against Roy Williams was also, people say, well, you got to find him for that one. Why? You mean to tell me that with the threat of being fined $50,000, Nick Collins was thinking to himself, I still got to do it. I still got to pop him because I got to do something to change the tone of this game. These Dallas Cowboys are going to take us out otherwise. Again, it's laughable. Well, the guy was up in the air. He's sort of falling. His body is turning. Collins puts his head down about 3 yards away because he has to lower his shoulder. And as it winds up, they bonked heads, and that was it.
It led to my favorite television moment of the NFL season, which was the week when all the concussions happened. They had Rodney Harrison in the studio, and he's like, I'll tell you what, if they increase the fines, whatever. But the whole thing was like if CNN, if there was a presidential assassination attempt, and they're like, Let's go to John Hinckley. He's in our studio. The biggest cheap shot artist ever, and he's weighing in.
What made it even worse was, to continue your analogy, it would be as if John Hinckley would say, why are you trying to kill the president? That's just wrong. That's a bad message to the kids.
He was like pious about it.
Rodney Harrison ascends up to Mount Pius to weigh in on other people taking cheap shots.
It was unbelievable.
Rodney, you took guys out in the preseason.
He was the cheapest guy of the last 15 years. I'm rooting for him.
Good for you that you're objective enough to
No
say
player
that.
was involved in more cheap shot incidents where the other team was furious at him than Rodney Harrison.
That's right. I left out Rodney Harrison in the previous generation's list of dirty players. Bill Romanowski was another one.
I'll go a little further. How is he on TV?
I think I got to say,
isn't this like Roger Clemens being TBS's baseball guy? Like, why isn't anybody who had PEDs, like Deshaun Merriman or like who are a couple of the other NFL guys who've been touched by it? Julius Peppers, Harrison. It flies out the window when these guys. I gotta say, football for some reason, it's like people don't care.
And with the piety coming out of Rodney Harrison, but then nasty trash talker, and then at the other extreme you have Tony Dungy.
So what's your prediction for this weekend?
I am gonna say that listen. Like I say, I've been wounded one too many times now. I sat in Heinz Field back in January of 2002, and I did so again back in January.
Just tell us the prediction.
Listen.
All right, just tell you, we don't need a setup. What's your prediction?
I'm going to say the Patriots.
Such a reverse jinx. I'm going to say the Steelers.
Fine.
Steelers by 1. I'm going to pick the Pats to cover.
I was going to say the Patriots by 1.
Steelers by 3.5. So we can check out NFL.com. You get a column and what else are you doing?
I'm doing a
column. And you're doing the fantasy show.
It's wonderful. The commish has greeted me with open arms. I couldn't be more excited about it. I write a column which goes up on Friday, Sunday mornings at 11:30 Eastern. I do 90 minutes of fantasy football talk leading up to kickoff.
which is funny because you're in last place.
Don't you dare throw that in my face.
They're throwing it in your face.
Because
you're in last place.
Let me just say, I am having the hardest of hard luck seasons.
You're in last place.
I am having. Listen, I know it's sad. It is sad.
I can't wait to get your tips for this week.
I don't hide it though. I feel fine. I'll
don't hide it. How could you hide it? You're in last place. What's there to hide?
You know as well as anybody
that you're in last place.
I have suffered some of the cruelest losses in the history of fantasy football. I've lost 2 games by decimal points. What did I lose to you by 0.15?
Yeah, and it was on like the last play of the game.
Yes, and then this past week I rallied from 70 down. To get within.
Be careful. This is verging into talking about your kids.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Be careful. I'm just.
Well, you brought it up.
I'm just saying.
The point is, and now you have been I've always appreciated your support of the jerk list. I'm doing a modified jerk list now. The shame report on the site. You can look that up too.
Video, yeah.
So I play. It's a bloopers thing, but I jazz it up a little bit. But yeah, basically, I look back at the people who deserve to be put under the light of shame.
Not the jerk list.
Well, I thought it best not to call the NFL players and coaches jerks. I didn't think the NFL would smile on that. So I just, like I said, I cast the harsh light of shame on them.
So it's the shame list.
The shame report.
Shame report.
Yeah.
No relation to the jerk list.
I just told you it's related to it. It's
a cousin of the jerk list.
Even a sibling.
A sibling. All right. Dave Dameshek, worst of luck this week.
What's that?
Worst of luck.
Where's the luck?
Worst.
Oh, worst of luck this week.
Worst of luck. Sorry, I can't speak. Worst of luck this week.
Let's kibbutz about it sometime.
All right, I'll kibitz
After
with
the
you
game,
this
we can kibbutz about it and see whose team's fortunes are doomed.
Mazel tov.
Happy Chanukah.
So I get to sign off. Whoa.
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Podcenter at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.
That concludes another episode of the BS Report, and we leave you with this final thought. Subway Restaurants is cheering on Jared. As if losing almost 250 pounds wasn't enough, Jared has run 552 miles training for the 2010 ING New York City Marathon. He fuels his training with the low-fat Subway Club. So now, to celebrate this landmark achievement, the Subway Club is the newest $5 footlong sub for a limited time, so hurry in. And hey, Jared, what's next? Scaling Everest? Maybe kayaking the Pacific? Subway. Eat fresh.